Okay, well, good afternoon. I'm Julie Broadway, president at the American Horse Council. Thank you for joining us for day 2 of our 2020 virtual conference. If you're like me, I've been doing a lot of virtual meetings and virtual conferences over the last few months, but technology is not flawless. So we might run into a little glitch now and then. Just bear with us about that. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to introduce the chair of the United Horse Coalition and the program director. And to begin, I'd just like to remind everyone that the United Horse Coalition was formed a number of years ago as a broad alliance of equine organizations that have joined together under the American Horse Council to educate the industry about the issues surrounding horses at risk or in transition. So with that, I'm going to ask Kristen Warner from the Jockey Club, who is our chair, to say a few opening remarks, and then I think she's going to pass the baton to Ashley Harkins, our program director.
Thank you, Julie. All right, well, welcome everybody to the United Horse Coalition virtual meeting. We've got a really great agenda today, starting with an update from Ashley on the incredible progress that's been made with the UHC efforts in the past year. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank our guest speakers, Emily, Dr. Weiss, Jen, and Tania, for being with us today. We look forward to hearing from each of you. Finally, just a reminder to our members before Ashley begins, the United Horse Coalition is intended to be a collaborative entity, and member participation and input is how we can grow and shape our future needs and direction as an organization. A couple years ago, we had a great strategic planning session, and Ashley will be touching base on the progress that's been made from that session, as well as future progress and plans. I'd like to ask for each of you, and maybe even challenge you guys, to review the action items and pick at least one area where you can provide some input or assistance, and let Ashley know. She actually emailed out some PDFs to our committee members with a list of the action items. And we will be reaching out to the members on an individual basis as well to try to get some collaboration going between our members and Ashley. So you can either volunteer or we may voluntold you. This is the warning in advance for our members out there. Your input is really valuable and we really appreciate all of your assistance in advance. So I'm going to turn it over to Ashley, but first I'm going to give a little bit of background. Ashley has been the current director of the United Horse Coalition since February of 2019. And Ashley, when I read that, I couldn't believe it. It seems like it's been a lot longer than that, but the amount you've accomplished in that short amount of time is amazing. So Ashley completed her Bachelor's of Science in Pre-Veterinary Science at the University of Vermont with a particular interest in equine science. Before coming to UHC, Ashley managed the Horse and Livestock Rehabilitation Program for the Animal Rescue League of Boston's Dedham branch for 14 years, as well as serving as a local certified animal control officer, which included working with law enforcement cases involving neglect and abuse. Seeing these equines in need impressed upon Ashley the importance of the UHC's mission and the incredible work it does helping owners of at-risk horses and educating them about responsible ownership. Ashley currently spends her free time with her 25-year-old gelding, Sammy, who was adopted from one of her neglect cases 14 years ago, and who's now instilling a love for horses in her 2 daughters and her horse enthusiast husband. So take it away, Ashley.
All right. Thank you, Kristen, for the introduction. I'm going to screen share our presentation here. Can everyone see that okay? Oh, Julie, can you give me permissions to screen share?
So my options for you are make you the host.
that
works. Yeah, that works.
That's what I'm going to do. There you go.
Thanks, Julie. All right. How's that? Better?
Good. Actually, I think that just means you're in charge of letting any latecomers in.
Oh boy. Okay. I'll do my best.
And Ashley, I did not have to admit anybody. According with the webinar thing, they automatically, as attendees, just to pop in.
Really?
Oh,
okay.
Excellent.
That's good to know. Okay, that's what we want to hear. So thank you, Kristen, for the introduction. And thank you guys so much for being here with us today. I will confess I couldn't find a good picture for my professional photos, so I shamelessly put up a picture of my husband and 2 little munchkins and my horse, Sammy, because he's much more fun to look at. As Kristen mentioned, this is my second meeting as director of the United Horse Coalition, and it's definitely By contrast, a lot different from last year with us having to do this virtually. However, the silver lining to all of this is because we're doing this virtually, we're able to open up our meeting to a much broader audience than we would normally have, which is wonderful. So because we have some new faces here today, I am going to start with a brief summary of basically who we are and what we do here at UHC. Couple of things to note before we get started. Emily had already alluded to this a little bit, but at the bottom of your Zoom screen, for those of you on your computer, you will find a button to open up both a Q&A box and a button to open up a separate chat box. If you have any questions throughout our presentations today, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box. Otherwise, you're welcome to chat away in the chat box. We will try and answer questions in the Q&A box as we go along. And if there's time, we may do a few questions after each speaker's presentation. Otherwise, we're leaving time at the end of our meeting today for a Q&A session. And we would also like to ask our UHC members for some feedback. So please stick around at the end because we really need you and your input. We also encourage non-UHC members to stick around as well because we want to hear your thoughts on some of the topics today. So with that, let's get this party started. So a brief history lesson on the United Horse Coalition, as Julie and Kristen mentioned. We were formed as an idea in 2005 when the American Association of Equine Practitioners held a summit during AHC's annual conference with other equine industry partners and stakeholders with the intention of starting an open dialogue on the plight of horses at risk in America during that time. Our original purpose was to develop a consensus on the most effective way to work together as an industry to address the issues that were surrounding horses who are at risk or in transition. And in June of 2006, the UHC was folded into the American Horse Council, where we now operate. UHC itself is comprised of a coalition of equine organizations, which include industry organizations, breed organizations, horse councils, as well as equine rescues and sanctuaries. We are an inclusive coalition, which means we have a wide range of knowledge and experience within our member base, and we do pride ourselves on being an impartial and open-minded entity who welcomes everyone into the conversation about the issues that we're facing. The more brains that we have working on these issues, the better solutions we can come up with. I should also note, as Julie spoke to regarding AHC, UHC also operates on a consensus basis, which means that our decisions and our actions represent the collective wisdom of all of our members. So what do we do? Well, our mission statement says that through industry collaboration, the UHC promotes education and options for at-risk and transitioning horses. And we do this by educating current and future horse owners on responsible ownership, proper care and breeding, and the options that are available to owners should they no longer be able to care for their horse, or if they need to rehome their horse before that horse reaches a state of being at risk. We're raising awareness about the issues surrounding horses that are at risk and the impact that it has on the horse industry as a whole, and hopefully reducing the number of horses at risk so that eventually, in a perfect world, we can eliminate the issues surrounding them altogether. We do this work mainly through education, collaboration with our partners, and advocating for at-risk horses through all facets of the equine industry. This includes promoting our educational materials about being a responsible horse owner, our UHC Equine Resource Database, and the Equine Welfare Data Collective, which is a program of the United Horse Coalition. Excuse me. By far, however, our biggest impact in creating change for at-risk horses is by starting at the source. And that's through teaching horse owners how to be responsible for the horses in their care. This is done by educating horse owners about not only responsible care and responsible breeding, but through providing resources and options to help them keep their horse in their home. Or if they can't keep their horse, providing responsible options and alternatives for the next chapter of their life. We also want to make sure that owners are thinking about what happens to their horse if something happens to them as an owner. So providing information regarding estate planning is also critical to that end. And then, of course, helping owners understand what's involved in end-of-life decisions, including euthanasia and disposal, because it will happen to every horse owner at some point in their lifetime. And if we can prepare them, it makes the topic a little less scary and a bit easier to understand what's involved in the process, both when it comes to euthanasia as well as disposal. Prevention and being a responsible horse owner is key in helping most horses from reaching an at-risk state and thereby obviously keeping them out of the system. So I put up this slide last year, but I think it bears repeating. So in this industry, we have had a shift in the way that we talk about unwanted horses. We ourselves have had a name change from the Unwanted Horse Coalition to the United Horse Coalition because the term unwanted carries a negative connotation to it. So when we talk about at-risk horses, formerly unwanted horses, it simply means that an equine that has an increased possibility of experiencing a situation of neglect, abuse, or general poor welfare. And when we talk about a horse that's in transition, it can be any equine that is currently in transition from one home, vocation, opportunity, or owner to the next. All right, so when we talk about our resources, or when we talk about resources in general, so for the context of UHC, a resource is anything that we can identify that can assist in helping horses that are at risk or preventing them from becoming at risk. There's currently 3 categories that these resources tend to fall under: resources for current owners, resources for prospective owners, and then resources for rescues and sanctuaries. Each of these subcategories has its own page on our website dedicated to resources and programs specifically to help them, in addition to what we have listed in the equine resource database. Sometimes, as is in the case of resources for rescues and sanctuaries, we actually direct users and visitors via external links off our webpage to resources and programs that are provided by our member organizations and partners. All right, so next, we're going to get into the heart of the great things that UHC has been doing this year. Our biggest accomplishment this year has, I think, been the UHC resource database. It's the one that I'm most proud of because its impact is huge for its potential to help owners of at-risk horses. Owners and even rescues and sanctuaries can come to our site and utilize this type of search engine to find various safety net programs or assistant programs listed by state. So for example, if an owner is in need of feed or hay assistance, they select that option from the drop-down box, put in their state, and we will basically spit back any organizations that we have identified that offer that type of assistance program. You can also search by breed-specific programs or affiliations, like if they're GFAS or TAA or STA accredited and so on. I've probably completely oversimplified its capabilities. So when you have the opportunity to do so, head over to the UHC website and check it out for yourself. This database is relatively flexible, so I encourage our members to please reach out to me if you have any improvements or ideas on how we can improve its functionality. So you might be wondering how we are populating this database. There's essentially 3 ways that we're adding new information to this. One is through the running list of 1,000 or so rescues and sanctuaries nationwide that UHC and EWDC audits. We also previously had a running list of safety net programs that were located on our old website that we migrated onto this database. And lastly, through the use of our resource database questionnaire, which is what you see on your screen. It's probably too small to see the writing, but you get the gist of it. And the questionnaire is basically open to anyone who might be able to provide some type of resource that can assist helping at-risk horses. We sent it out initially to groups earlier this year as a test run to work out any kinks in the database, and we're gearing up to send it out again, so be on the lookout for that. Our plan is to send it to all known equine welfare organizations, 4-H groups, extension groups, or specialists rather, horse councils, municipal groups, and various equine industry organizations. Essentially, we want to cast a wide net because different organizations can offer some type of assistance in some form. Even if they don't, we like them to at least start thinking about maybe what they could be offering. This was our second big undertaking this year, but one that I feel was equally important, I think, is the resource database. Given that we sort of act as a hub for safety net and resource information, we felt it would be entirely appropriate for us to set up a dedicated page specifically for resources pertaining to COVID-19 and relief programs. So when you go to the landing page for COVID, there's sections that we set up by sector. So there's one for horse owners, one for nonprofits, one for equine businesses, and then we also have one for equine industry employees. In addition to this, we have a section set up for state-specific resources as they come to us, because each state actually has their own recommendations, as do individual barns, and it does vary from facility to facility. So anything that is state specific, we will post there. The sections themselves include links to articles, websites, information, webinars, and anything really that we think would be beneficial to help aid you during this time. I will note that the American Horse Council also has a COVID page that mirrors our own so that we can make sure this information was widely available to the industry. I also encourage people to please let us know if you're aware of something beneficial that should be up on the page. We've had a very quick turnaround time with getting things up on the site, just because we want to make sure we're getting information out to everyone as quickly as possible. And conversely, if there's something that you need that you don't see up there, let us know that as well. Let's see. All right, educational materials. So of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't touch upon some of the educational materials that we offer on our website. One of my favorite materials is this really great booklet that actually contains all of these really important topics called the Owning Responsibly booklet. It's basically the UHC's Bible of everything you wanted to know about being a responsible owner. It's available in PDF form for anyone to use, and we definitely encourage you to use it, because it can be a great tool for potential adopters, new horse owners, and even current ones, as there's information in there that I'm willing to bet a lot of people haven't thought about. We have a brochure on rehabilitating the neglected horse. There's information on, is horse ownership right for me? So should I be taking lessons? Should I try leasing first? Or am I ready to dive on in and become a horse owner? We have a responsible breeding brochure. We have information on finding the right horse, so information on how to responsibly acquire your next horse, whether you purchase or adopt. We have options for owners who can no longer keep their horse, estate planning for your horse, which is something a lot of people don't necessarily think about, but it's incredibly important to do so. We have a sheet on questions to ask when rehoming a horse. So, it's very important, obviously, to research where your horse is going to. Does the facility have a good reputation? Do they follow any sort of welfare guidelines? Are they accredited? What is their euthanasia policy? I will note we're looking to update this form for 2020. So if any of our members would like to collaborate on that, shoot me an email. You can find it on the website, and let me know. We also have information on programs that extend the useful lives of horses. So maybe your horse can't compete anymore, but they might be perfectly suitable for another vocation. And then, of course, a topic that's tough for everybody is end-of-life decisions and euthanasia, as well as disposal options for equines. It's such a hard topic to broach, but one that we all will come across at one point or another. And I think having that preparation and knowledge in advance goes a long way to helping make these tough decisions a little bit easier if you're prepared for them. That way it doesn't become something to avoid or to be afraid of. All these materials and more are uploaded on to our website for our members to utilize, as well as the general public. If you're a UHC member and you need some print materials, we can get those to you as well within reason, because they get a little pricey. Oh, these are just more, sorry, I should have switched to the next slide. These are just more of our educational materials. Occasionally we'll put out one-page graphic infographics depending on what's going on. So keeping along with the educational materials, the UHC Join the Booklet, Join the Effort booklet is getting an update and an overhaul for 2020. And our website, I think this booklet is called Best Practices, How Your Organization Can Help Unwanted Horses. So obviously that's going to get a title change. This booklet was originally put together to help industry organizations and individuals institute activities and programs to help at-risk horses and those in transition. It's a means to share what other organizations and individuals are already doing to be able to provide guidance and ideas to other organizations and individuals about how they can jump on board as well. It's also important to note that this document is a living document. And that just means that it changes as new programs are developed. So as I mentioned, we're currently in the midst of updating this booklet. The plan is to send it to UHC members once it's updated for any additions and revisions. So be on the lookout for that coming your way in the next couple of months or so. And then we have 2020 project. One of the new projects we're hoping to collaborate on is the creation of a new owner packet containing some form of the responsible ownership materials we have on our website. Our goal is to have these packets available for distribution anywhere basically that a horse changes hands. So this could be adoption facilities, sales barns, breeding barns, auctions, and so on. Theoretically, these packets could also include provisions for things like example buyback agreements, first right of refusal contracts, information on microchipping and full circle programs, and so on. The purpose is to try and promote responsible ownership before the horse changes hands so that each owner has the tools in place that they need to make responsible decisions on their horse's behalf. And then one of the other projects we'd like to work on is finding a way to transform the educational materials that we already have into different types of mediums that might make them a bit more palatable for people, because I know it's hard to get someone to sit down and read a wordy PDF file. So I think if we can turn these materials into educational videos or modules, or maybe break some of them down into like one-page infographics, it will help us have a greater range of options when it comes to sharing this important information on a much broader scope. Emily, who we affectionately call Stearns because there's a lot of Emilys, and I have also floated around the idea of running podcasts pertaining to some of these topics, as well as including some of our members in on these podcasts. Nothing is off the table really on this project. So again, if this interests you, please shoot me an email. We can go over some ideas. All right, so strategic goals and future plans. I am happy to share that as of today, our membership level has almost doubled from this time last year. Most of our membership has been seeing an increase in the nonprofit level. So this year, I'd really like to focus on bringing in more industry members at the full associate and supportive level, because even though our membership increased, our income through membership actually ended up decreasing. So increasing our upper level membership will allow us the budgetary needs to be able to expand some of our programs and initiatives a bit, as well as expand on the educational materials and grow and maintain our equine resource database. We would also like to start collaborating with organizations on a youth curricula and educational materials centering on how we can help our youth understand what it means to be a responsible horse owner, so that they're prepared when the time comes for them to enter into horse ownership themselves. As we know, all change begins with by starting with our youth. I think this would be a great collaborative project with some of our 4-H groups, the extension groups, you know, and I encourage any of our members who are interested in jumping in on this project to please reach out to me. I know this project sort of got put on the back burner as we were working on the database, but we are, I think, at a place now where we can actually really do some good work on this. And then, of course, we also plan to continue our resource database questionnaire by periodically sending it throughout the year so that we can expand on the resource database and populate it with more, you know, more resources. I think this would also include our quarterly audit and maintaining of the database of 1,000 or so rescues and sanctuaries nationwide, which is a bear of a project in and of itself. And we're so very thankful for all the interns who graciously help us with that. And then I actually just added this slide last night. I'd really love to see us expand a bit during the AHC conference by dedicating a day specifically for UHC and building upon speaking engagements for topics on responsible ownership. For example, we could be offering speaking engagements on estate planning and aftercare for horse owners. We could be doing in-depth planning on euthanasia and disposal. Navigating new homes and how to transition your horse to a new owner, how to build a safety net for your horse, and navigating the support systems that are out there. We have an extensive list of topics we could offer, and there's a lot of potential to really home in on the education end of things for owners. And I look forward to broadening our UHC meeting and seeing what we can offer there. I will say we can also potentially break these out and offer webinars on these topics throughout the year as well. So it doesn't have to be just that one day, but it would be nice to expand on it a little bit. So that's just a little taste on some of the upcoming projects we have planned for the coming year. As I mentioned before, if any of this interests you, please reach out, as I'd really love to have some input from our members on these initiatives. Sometimes I feel like an army of one, and that's not what a coalition is about. I do very much value your contributions and ideas as members, and in turn, it helps us to better serve you. So I think we might have a little bit of time for a couple of questions if there's any unanswered in the Q&A before we move on.
Not yet. We've been keeping up with the chat, so I think we're
doing
you guys
pretty
are
well. So good.
So I just want to take a minute to thank Ashley for all her hard work. As I put in the chat, she's a part-time employee. It is just amazing all the things she's been able to accomplish and everything that she's been doing. We are recording this afternoon session. So if you want to take, I'm happy to send you the file afterwards, and you can replay it for your members if you're at a state horse council or another organization, and they can hear all the things that she shared and all the other presenters today.
Thank you, Julie. All right, so if there are no questions, that concludes our UHC presentation. And I would like to introduce our next speaker, the Equine Welfare Data Collective's Program Manager, Emily Stearns. So Emily completed her Master of Science in Equine Science at the University of Edinburgh, Scotland. I'm slightly jealous. She is a self-admitted horse girl and grew up eventing in Massachusetts. Her experience includes various equine research projects, managing large and small horse farms, animal care and adoption counseling at an animal rescue, and teaching as an adjunct professor in the University of New Hampshire's equine program. In her free time, she enjoys riding, traveling, and hiking with her dogs. Emily is extremely excited to be managing the EWDC and working to bring this vital resource to the public. So welcome, Emily, and I will hand the reins over from here.
Okay. Wait, Ashley, you're doing my slides, right?
I am doing your slides.
I was like, wait, we had a plan. Hi all, I'm Emily Stearns. So this is the Equine Welfare Data Collective, and we are housed within the United Horse Coalition. So I have the joy of working with Ashley on a daily basis. And I will say, with her being part-time, there's definitely sometimes I feel like I'm shouting lonely into the void without her. But we are now in year 3 of the Equine Welfare Data Collective, and we've had a lot going on and a lot happening. So it's really exciting to get to talk about it today. So Ash, go ahead, first slide. The mission here with the Equine Welfare Data Collective is to provide the community data to evaluate and guide actions that support equines at risk and in transition. So the data we collect and report on, while yes, right now it's mostly coming from rescues and safety net programs, it's really intended for everyone to read and consume and kind of understand the analysis of. We hope grant funders look at it and identify areas they feel would be good for them to work on. And we hope horse owners read through it and identify even things local to them that they might be able to work on or volunteer with, or maybe initiate with their local horse council or local ag commission or something like that. Next slide. So one thing we do is we are grant funded. We're fully grant funded at this point. We don't receive any personal income or funding for what we do, except for what we get through grants. And our current grant funders come from the ASPCA, along with the Right Horse Initiative, the American Horse Council Foundation, and the Foundation for the Horse, which was previously the AAEP Foundation. We also have a couple of grant applications out there right now that we will be really excited to talk about when we can, but we are constantly kind of reaching out and trying to get everyone on board as much as possible within the industry. This isn't just the job of nonprofits, you know, and foundations to kind of support, because at-risk horses and equine welfare really does affect the whole industry. So we are constantly kind of trying to reach out and get more people on board, because we think this is information that's really critical to supporting the health of the industry as a whole and the health of equines within the industry as a whole. Next slide. So on top of our grant funders, we also have what we call ambassadors. And this is a program we started in our second year, I think. And what this is are groups that have committed to saying, yes, we really support what you're doing and we want to be involved and we want our own communities to be involved. So we currently have Cantor and the Global Federations of Animal Sanctuaries, the Maryland Equine Transition Service, the Retired Racehorse Project, the Standard Bred Transition Alliance, and the HSUS Forever Foundation. And all these organizations are committed to sharing information about the EWDC with their constituents, and they join us on member roundtable calls. And we take a lot of their feedback into great consideration in terms of what they feel is important data for us to be collecting, because they have a lot of kind of boots on the ground positioning right now with their own communities and their own members and affiliates. So they can say, hey, you know, people think, and our affiliates think this is really important, and this data point would be really critical to understand for their own programming and their own identification of what will be most helpful right now. Our ambassador program is always open to join. It's free to join. You just commit to sharing our information twice yearly when we update the survey. You need to participate to at least one member roundtable a year. We do 2. And we also ask that when we do our reports that you share information about our reports within your base. The application is online on the United Horse Coalition website, and you don't have to be a nonprofit to become an ambassador. So we would welcome anybody within the industry to become an ambassador and be happy to say, hey, we think this data is really important to collect, or look at this cool data point, you all should share it and read it and understand it. Or this piece of the report we're really excited to share, look at the progress we've made. We think it's really, really important to get, again, the whole industry on board and not just the nonprofits. Next slide, Ash. So a good question, what kinds of organizations could join as an ambassador? Academic or extension? Yes, absolutely. We would love to have academics or extensions join as ambassadors. Again, we're happy to have businesses, we're happy to have universities, we're happy to have 4-H groups, nonprofits, what have you. If you guys have hands-on with horses or are educating the public about horses or working with horse councils, we definitely want to encourage you to join as an ambassador and kind of join the herd. And as an ambassador, you can talk about, like we do, all of our accomplishments. And the biggest accomplishment we've done that Ashley and I are both really proud of is over the past few years, we've built up this database of over 1,000 equine welfare organizations. And this database takes a lot of manpowers and a lot of kind of time and commitment to manage. So in terms of this database, what we do is we kind of go out into the ether of the internet and trade show magazines and conference proceedings, and we gather literally every organization contact info that we feel is first off a nonprofit, so that way they're eligible for grant funding opportunities, and that's our kind of stepping stone for this data we're collecting. We will probably eventually be opening it to other organizations, not just nonprofits, because we think, you know, this data, as all things in the industry are kind of moving towards, it's not just affecting nonprofits, it's affecting the whole industry. So at some point we're going to open up our database, but again, that's going to take a lot of man hours and kind of managing. So we go out into the ether and we collect all these organizations, and then we enter it into our computer system. And then once a year, we go through the entire list and one, double check if they're still in operation, and two, and confirm that if they are still in operation, that they don't have any legal proceedings against them or anything like that. Our current survey sample size, so we take this huge database and we built our survey, which you can see on the website. And we send it out into the ether of our database to all the contacts we have. And so far, 30% of that population has responded to our survey at some point. We update our survey twice a year, and that was based on feedback during our initial pilot study that org said, well, once a month was too much to do this. Once a year was not enough to do this. So the org said, we want to do this twice a year. So we update the survey, and that means we update the time period we're collecting for, and also some of the questions. If we feel like we've repeated a question a few times and have a really good sample size for it, we'll replace it with another question that either our ambassadors have helped us to form, or questions that have popped up from a previous analysis of the data in general. And we take these responses from the survey and we analyze it, and we clean up the data, we put it into our super special math machines, and then we publish the reports free. We currently have 2 published reports, and the reports take anywhere from, ideally we're trying to get it down to about 6 months by the time we close a survey, clean and organize the data, analyze the data, then write it up for printing in a report. We are about to start our 3rd report actually right now. But these 2 published reports can be found for free on our website, and we're always happy to discuss any of the data points in them. We remind people that the published reports represent the survey responses and the participants. We are excited that in the 2nd report, and we'll go over this data point, but in the 2nd report, we had a large enough sample size to estimate maximum daily capacity. So that was pretty cool that we were able to get enough responses to start making national estimates on some data points. And again, another accomplishment was this ambassador program that we're kind of building slowly as we go. We had to start it as kind of a manageable size. It is just me, for the most part, managing the Equine Welfare Data Collective. So as we start new programs, I need to make sure, 1, that I have enough intern support to still be recruiting data responses, and 2, enough brain space for myself to be making sure that as we bring all these new ambassadors on, we're able to manage them and support them and take their input well. And so the last thing you'll see on the accomplishments is our intern program. And this intern program is a paid internship, and it provides a stipend. And we have been really excited. We've had, I meant to look at the numbers, but I think we just hired our 7th or 8th intern at this point. And the interns are working towards, Julie's nodding, yes, 7 or 8, something like that. And it's been really fun because it's been a really diverse group of students. We have some non-traditional adult students, we have men, we have women, we have people across all different aspects of kind of the diversity spectrum. Some of them are horse people, some of them are math people, some of them, I think Wanda Lee is on the call right now. Maybe she's one of our current interns. She worked for the Federal Census Bureau, so that's a really cool student to bring on. But it's been really neat to bring, you know, we talk about how we can bring more people into the industry. And I think a way of doing that is bringing some of these students that aren't necessarily horse people and kind of expanding the industry to them and teaching them about all the cool things we have going on and getting them involved more. All right, next page, Ash. And if I start talking too fast, please someone raise your hand in the chat. But so this is how it works for the most part, how our data collection works. And there's a super cool photo of me making a phone call selfie that I took a couple weeks ago to put in this. But we have interns, we have myself, we are on the phone and on the email. We call every 6 months the entire database. We cycle through these calls and they are, I want to say, it takes anywhere from 3 months or so to get through the whole list once. And then we go through the whole list again. So unless an organization has already submitted, and we keep track of that in our database, anyone who hasn't submitted, you get a lot of hopefully not too annoying phone calls from us. And part of that is because we just want to keep growing our sample size. Once you get the phone call from us, we direct you to our website, and you'll see the middle picture on our slide. And our survey is currently hosted through Qualtrics, so it's mobile friendly, it's website friendly. If you want to do it and you don't have a good connection and you want us to send you the PDF, we can do that. And if you're really wanting to do it and you don't have any digital access, we will mail you a hard copy. We are that happy to get you participating. So we are always happy to get the survey to you in any way we can. And once you complete the survey, your data is all kept private. We remove any identifying features for the analysis. We analyze the data, we put it through our math machine, and then we send it to our third-party analyst to just confirm the results, because as we tell people, it's never good just to have one person's eyes. My eyes, you know, I wear glasses, they're not very good. So you never want just my eyes on the data. So we send it to a third party to confirm the results, that all the math checks out and all of the estimates we make check out. And then we write up the report, and then we send it to another third party right now, which is the University of Oregon, to basically do a peer review of the report and make sure that, well, yes, the math works out, but also our understanding of the math is good, and the decisions and conclusions we come through based on the math are good. Both reports, again, can be found on the website free of charge in full PDF form. Ashley, next slide. So this is a peek of some of the data that came out in the second report. This picture is a map of our respondents. So what we do is we report the data regionally, and we report the data nationally as well. So in terms of reporting the data regionally, if we have a state, and this is important for state horse councils, if you want a breakdown of your state, we can do a statewide breakdown if the sample size is large enough. So I always kind of tout Colorado as the golden child. But Colorado, we almost always have a large enough sample size from Colorado. We usually have at least 50% of that state reporting to do a state-specific report. So we break the regions down based on the federal census regions. And in terms of participation, so you'll see the boxes. We'll just do New England because that's where I am, so I'm a little biased. We'll do New England in the top right. The RP is the regional population. So that is how many organizations we have identified within that region. So the RP for New England was 48. We found 48 equine welfare organizations, nonprofits, that are taking custody of animals. We also have, so S2 is the percentage of respondents of that population that responded to this current survey, this reported survey, which I believe is the second half of 2018. So 31% of the total population of New England for nonprofits responded with data for the survey. The CR is the cumulative response rate for both surveys. So the second report, we combined some of the data points, excuse me, we combined some of the data points for as large of a sample size as possible on some of the questions, and we note that in the data report. So the CR is the cumulative response rate. So some of the questions that are denoted as a combined response from the first half of 2018 to the second half of 2018 for some of these organization demographic specific survey questions. For instance, how do you house your horses? Or what's your maximum daily capacity? That's the cumulative response rate. So 41% of all organizations in New England had responded to what is your most common way of housing horses in your custody, that kind of question. You can see, so you can look at all the different regions based on where you are. So if you're in region 2, which is New York and New Jersey, that has a region population of 67 organizations. Our largest region is actually kind of the Southeast region, which includes Florida and Georgia, and that has 195 organizations. And then in terms of kind of the second largest is California with 165 organizations. And I believe, I'm always just kind of going off what I remember from the analysis. I believe California has one of the largest single state populations, and they have 100 organizations alone. So it's pretty impressive what some of these states are doing to support at-risk horses in their area. Next slide, Ash. So this is another data point that we report, and that is housing and how organizations house their animals in their custody. And I apologize, some of the text is a little small, but we've broken it down in the second report by size of organization, so what their maximum daily capacity is. And you can see the way these organizations are housing animals varies greatly dependent on how large their organization is. And we found that to be a significant data point. So extra large organizations, and these are organizations that typically house over 100 animals, typically own the property that they are using to house animals. And that's comparable to, say, small organizations, which house less than 25, I believe, sometimes less than 10. A lot of times that blue chunk at the top is on property owned by the founder. So the property is owned by the founder. And then they're one of the groups, if you look way down at the bottom, that kind of middle blue color, way down at the bottom under the orange slice, that's groups that are boarding. So they are paying for public boarding. And you can imagine if you're a small organization, you don't own your own property, and you're paying for boarding, that's going to be a significant financial impact for you. So the needs of the organizations vary by size, not just because of the number of animals they're taking in, but also because some of the logistical implications related to their size. So if they can't own their own land, that means that we now have a different set of expenses related to housing animals based on that. Next slide, Ash. And this was the piece we were most excited about. So in the second data report, we were able to garner a large enough sample size to make a national estimated capacity. So this is the daily maximum capacity. So at any point on any day, the maximum number of horses that can be held in custody of these nonprofit organizations. So this isn't an annual capacity, this is daily, which is pretty cool. And daily, it's about 47,000 animals. So if we talk about length of stay, the number of horses helped annually can be vastly affected by the average length of stay. And we're beginning to look at length of stay next. And this is going to be really relative to understanding kind of some of the places we go from here in terms of data collection and what we can do to support data collection. Go ahead, Ash, to the next slide. So in terms of record keeping, and this is something we find to be the biggest, I don't want to say setback, but the biggest hurdle we find in daily kind of data collection and how we get data is record keeping. So we found that among all responses, which is the furthest right bar, about more than 50%. So, you know, it's up here towards 65%, kind of where that orange bar is, are using paper records or some sort of Excel type spreadsheet record keeping method. And in terms of record keeping method, that means only 30 to 35% are using animal shelter specific software. And what this means is, so for organizations relying on paper record keeping and spreadsheet based record keeping systems, there's a huge time investment there in terms of being able to report data. And this is something we've identified as kind of one of the biggest limitations and factors that people don't complete the survey or don't submit data in general, because they just don't have the time. I mean, I can tell you personally, most of us here own horses. The last thing you want to do after being out in the barn doing stalls in New England, let's say it's February, it's dark at 3 o'clock, it's snowing probably, and you get back home after doing stalls and feeding horses, maybe you've been up with a colic. You don't want to sit down at your computer and tally up a whole bunch of math and then email it to the annoying person that's been calling you all month to get you to send data. It's just, you don't want to do it. And we're totally appreciative of that. So one thing we recognize is being able to help organizations with their record keeping is not just going to help them improve their efficiency and improve their record keeping and better records. You know, it's reflected in human medical record keeping in general. Means better health, and the same is true for horses. So better record keeping means we can be helping at-risk horses more efficiently, we can be helping their medical needs, their farrier needs, be tracking adoption applications, all that kind of stuff. So next slide, Ash. One thing we really made it a goal to do this year in particular, because again, we've identified this kind of hurdle to get over if we want to continue collecting data and reporting data, is we need to help you guys with your record keeping. So one big project we launched this year, and this is kind of the big announcement for what we've done, and we're going to be posting it on the website later this week, is we have done an analysis of not only what data points animal shelters and rescues and, you know, direct transition services and safety net services, the data points they personally collect, regardless of what we ask about. We've not only done a couple focus groups on what data they're collecting, but how that reflects and is analyzed in the different software systems available to them. And our goal is to help those organizations self-serve themselves in identifying, if they're not already using a software record keeping based system, help identify what they might want to use. And if an organization is using a software based record keeping system, they don't like it, it might help them identify something else they could be doing better. So what we did, this is the first kind of stage of what we did, was we ran 3 focus groups, and we are working with a company called W4Site, and they focus specifically on helping nonprofits find software to do whatever they need to do. W4Site is what's called software agnostic. They don't stump for any one software company. Their #1 goal is to just help nonprofits find software and the tools they need to do what they need to do as best as they can. So W4Site sat in on these focus calls with us, and we basically talked to, I want to say 35 groups overall about data points they are keeping, data points they want to be keeping, and what software systems follow those data points, or what they like or don't like about the software systems they're using, and also about the pricing of those software systems, because we recognize that it's not just knowledge and ability that's also limiting for record keeping, but pricing and time management. You know, is it complicated enough that you need to pay someone to manage it for you specifically? So the first result of this we got is this Airtable that we'll share nationally once we finish up with our virtual conference. But this Airtable allows organizations to, one, do they identify as what's called a custodial group? So do they take custody of animals? Or do they identify as non-custodial? So these would be safety net programs, direct placement programs that are not taking custody of animals. And then there's a whole list of different data points that they may or may not be keeping. And if they do, they can see if that's reflected within. We basically just took all of the survey data for software options that people are using and analyzed them all, because why not? So you can see if those individual software systems are able to track that data point that you want to be tracking. Next slide, Ash. And you can see at the bottom of these slides is a shortened URL. If you want to see these error tables, they're in view only, so you can just put in that shortened URL and check them out. For people who are looking at the software systems and get really confused about some of the vocabulary or the intent of some of the data points, we've also created this glossary. So you can check out kind of what the different data points mean, if you are custodial or non-custodial, that kind of stuff. And you can check it out at the bit.ly/EWDC software glossary. Next page, Ash. And then kind of the ultimate place that this is all going is we have now set dates for 3 webinars. And this is our big announcement for this. So the first webinar will be November 9th at 3:30 p.m. And you can go through that Airtable and self-identify with what kind of software you're looking for. And W4Site is going to run these 3 webinars, and you can ask them whatever questions you want about any of the software systems that they've analyzed. And they're going to talk about kind of the different aspects or the different pros and cons of each of these software systems. So the first webinar is November 9th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And these will all be recorded too, and they'll be free. And they're open to everybody, not just EWDC participants. But they're going to review software geared to organizations that provide shelter rescue support or sanctuary and retirement services. So essentially custodial services. It's geared towards software options that are for groups that take custody of animals. The next webinar will be that same week, November 11th at 3:30 p.m. And that's going to review software geared towards organizations that provide safety net services and direct placement services, and basically any non-custodial service that is helping at-risk equines. The third webinar will be webinar 3, and that's November 13th at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this is for fundraising and volunteer management. So basically, we recognize that while we don't currently collect data on fundraising and volunteer management, that based on our focus groups, it's really, really critical. And one of the key things that is kind of the make it or break it for an organization to decide to use record keeping software or not. So if it not only tracks horses, but also the volunteers helping them. And we want to make sure that you guys are feeling supported in all of your record keeping needs, because again, that's going to help you guys track your own data and submit your own data. And it's not just about tracking data for EWDC. It's really helpful for talking to your own donors or your community. Say, hey, look, we brought in this many horses last year. They came from owner surrenders, and these are places we've identified in our community that could help mitigate the need for owner surrenders. Or, hey, we took in this many horses last year. With this percentage more funding, we could take in this many horses, or this much more volunteer support hours, we could help and feed this many more horses. So while yes, we want you to be reporting all your data to us so we can, kind of share the analysis and the reporting, we also think it's really critical that you guys are kind of tracking your own information for your own assistance services, helping as many horses as you can. If you want to attend any of the webinars, you can follow the link on the slide, or you can always email me at ewdc@horsecouncil.org, and I'm always happy to just sign you up. Again, they're free. They're open to not just EWDC participants or ambassadors. Anyone in the whole world is welcome to attend them, because we think this information is really, really critical to get out. Next slide, Ash. And kind of the bigger question is, where do we go from here, and what do we have happening? So our third report is coming out soon, and we have a whole team of interns working hard, because one of our goals is to get a large enough sample size that we can report all of 2019 in this third report. So we have a large enough sample size for the first half, and we really want to meet that sample goal for the second half, so we can report on 2019 all at once. And then that will give us the data we need to do kind of an efficient COVID-19 report. So if we get this third report out efficiently, we can do kind of a 2020 COVID-19 report and see how COVID is affecting at-risk horses and equine welfare nationally and regionally. Because again, it's not just nonprofits and equine welfare groups that need help. It's the industry as a whole whenever we have something like this going on. And also, so our record keeping software webinars, there's the dates and the times for you again. But as we move on through our third report next spring, we'll then be updating the survey in kind of January, February to collect for the rest of 2020. Our current survey is collecting for the second half of 2019 for people who didn't get a chance to submit that data yet, and for the first half of 2020. And we'll be having a members roundtable soon to be taking feedback from ambassadors, especially considering all the COVID information and concerns that we should probably be tracking, because it's going to be really, really good for us to hear from you guys about what COVID is doing in kind of the welfare community as well. And I think I just made it through the 30-minute time, just under the wire. So Ashley, I will kick it back for you, and I am happy to answer any questions anybody has.
All right. Thank you, Em, for talking to us about the EWDC and all the amazing work being done through the program. I'm super proud of what we're accomplishing through EWDC. I want to let you guys know real quick, just some housekeeping. If you want to use the chat box, just make sure that you are selecting the all panelists and attendees selection from the drop down, just so everyone's able to see your response, because I think some of the chat has just been going to the panelists only. So just double check before you type in there for that.